All right, here we are in our podcast studios, recording live, both from the U.S. now and also from Hong Kong, where my good friend Miss Valentina Tudose is sitting and hanging out and doing all the great work that she does there. Just a little while ago, we kicked off our first intimacy and connection masterclass, and now is our opportunity to talk about how it went, how our thoughts have settled, and how people experienced it, and how we experienced it. And so to kick things off, let me give my colleague and friend, Ms. Valentina, an opportunity to introduce herself. But I'm going to ask her to do so in the context of what she does and how it is important, how it impacts something called a quote unquote masterclass on intimacy and connection. Ms. Valentina, what do you have for us?
Hello, James. Very nice to be here with you in our studios. I am a relationship coach and clinical hypnotherapist. And in this context of working with relationships and people's minds, I feel that intimacy and connections are two of the areas that need a lot of help in our lives, because there is no education in our entire curriculum. You've been an academic for a long time in your life, and you know that nobody has ever been to relationship school. So I see my contribution to the world as filling in that gap between our deepest desire for connection and intimacy, especially in romantic relationships, and the skills that come with satisfying that desire. So what we're doing together and what I do individually is really designed to help people understand what it takes to connect with each other and what are the barriers that stop us from creating that deep connection.
And when you think about the work that we were doing together, when you and I said, okay, well, maybe we should think about doing something, one of the pieces that seemed really important to you was this idea of masculine and feminine energy, right? And that needed to come through not only in the conversations that we were going to have with these folks who were participants, but also to help them to see how it comes through in the context of relationships. So I wondered if you might just talk a little bit about why masculine and feminine energy in the context of a connection and intimacy masterclass were so critical and important to you.
I will answer this from the perspective of the leader and follower dynamic that we experience usually in dancing, in business, in pretty much every situation in life. I think anybody who has had too many bosses or too many chefs in the kitchen knows that that doesn't tend to work very well. Equally, in relationships, people need to embrace different roles. So there are times in a romantic relationship where there has to be a person making the decisions and taking the action, and the other person needs to kind of follow along and say, hey, that's a great idea. I'll go along with you on this journey. When we have couples who compete very much, when I see them being in this sort of power dynamic where everybody is trying to assert their importance and their sense that I am, the goat in this situation, it becomes a very conflictual relationship. So the masculine feminine energy is a framework for helping my clients understand that we don't always have to be in charge, that it's okay to play this game of letting the other person take the lead occasionally. And I want to clarify that the masculine feminine energy, especially in romantic relationships, has nothing to do with the biological gender of the person. So I, who identify as female, can very, very much spend a lot of my time in masculine energy. When I'm at work, when I'm in business mode, when I have to get stuff done, I activate my masculine power, simply because getting stuff done is a quality of the masculine that we see in the world, right? The world is supposedly led by men, although I don't know that's always true, but we can have that debate another time. Equally, when I'm finished with being in task mode, when I had enough of leading, making decisions, and taking over the world, I can also desire to be held, to be protected, to be taken care of, but also in the kind of feminine role where I let somebody else do the driving, so to speak, in life. So that is just a framework. It doesn't have to be woo woo or spiritual or anything like that. People don't have to feel energy, although they can. But it's really a matter of explaining how we can have it all if we are able to balance these two sides of our personality and life.
Got it. Got it. So we've talked about like who and what and when and where you do and why you do it and why the masculine and feminine energy are so important as constructs or lenses to how it comes across. I wonder if I would just reflect on these, was it this, the 6+ hours that we spent with these humans doing human things and having human conversations, open conversations, emotional conversations, scratchy conversations. And as that day went, and you were talking, or I was talking, or they was talking, were there points of aha moments for you, highlights, if you would, and would you share maybe one or two of them, and kind of what they meant, how they landed, what was the value?
Some of the most powerful words that were uttered in the room were, aha, now I get it. And this is what I love. And this is what I know you love, because we were both, okay, we've done a good job. And those aha moments were very powerful because they were essentially related to exactly the title of our masterclass, which was, what do men and women want? And because we've had both men and women in the room, some with their partners, some not, at least not with their partner present, I think the most powerful aspect of the conversation that we had was that people were able to actually receive information from the other side. In relationships, I see this often with my clients. The information is out there. Like, people tell each other, hey, this is what I need. This is what is not happening for me. This is what I need us to work on. But because we have a lot of blind spots and a lot of our own stories, when we listen to a partner's need, we often do not actually register that information. So the framework that we discussed with the participants about the different needs that people might have, like if you are a female, you want to have more connection, you lead with love, because it's part of our biological setup to need somebody to take care of us. This is since the day when we were in the jungle and we were threatened by whatever wild animals you want to think of. But being the weaker sex in a physical definition, females are designed to want this protection. Now, in our world, of course, we're all independent women and all of that, and we can take care of ourselves. And I raise my hand on that. That was the mindset and still is the mindset. But that does not mean that when I drop this guard and I see a man that can offer me this safety and this love, I cannot really relax into my feminine. And equally for the men in the room, for them to understand that when they behave a little distant or when they're not there to meet their partner's needs, she simply gets scared. So the conversation around fundamental needs for me was very powerful because it boiled down a lot of the conflicts that people experience. And we fight because we don't feel safe and because we don't feel seen. Essentially, our need for safety, for certainty, and our need for significance are not being satisfied. But of course, in everyday life, this is not people think. They think we're fighting because you didn't text me to tell me you're going to be late for dinner. Or we're fighting because you don't agree how I raise our child. It's not really that.
So, was there any thread? So, as we landed these two big questions, right? As things start to settle in your mind, and you've had some testimonials that have come back, some conversations that have come back. This is what's next. This is what's over the next hill, or the thing that you want to focus on that has come out of it, or it reinforces how important what you have been working on might be. Any next steps that you're thinking about?
I think this was a very powerful exercise that we did with the participants, and it's already informed how I'm going to approach my couples work from now on. Of course, great credit to you for actually standing up for your people, as you like to say. I think one of the most powerful moments, which I will actually ask you about in a minute, is when you communicated the whole point of view about men needing respect, needing status, needing to feel important in relationships versus women needing to feel love. And I think that was one of the biggest aha moments in the room. And the funny thing is, it's not like I've never said this to my clients. I did, except when it came from you, or when it comes from someone who's on the other side, it lands differently. And I think obviously we're doing this together, and I hope that one of the main takeaways for us from this event has been that we can do a lot of good work together. But even if we don't collaborate in the future, I think offering this different perspective exactly in that framework of masculine feminine energy, and getting the people I work with to integrate this information in a way that is, if you like, visceral, not just rational. Right. I think the biggest benefit of us doing this together as a, let's say, a representation of the feminine and the masculine and the different perspectives was that each of us can speak for our people. I think it's difficult for me, no matter how much I embody my masculine energy, to stand in a room full of men and women and to deliver the same message with the same level of credibility. So I think as much as I will try, and I am very inspired by the way that you approached it. So if we are not working together, I will take a lot of lessons about how to frame the conversation around needs, around barriers, and around facilitators of connection. I think this masterclass that we did was absolutely invaluable for me. So thank you.
Fantastic. I had a great time doing it as well. And it's my hope that we find a way to accelerate and grow it, fertilize the ground that's there. One, because I like doing it and I like working in this way, in this sort of balanced, if you will, or imbalanced, healthy, imbalanced way. But also because I think that it's a kind of thing that people continue to need. So you mentioned that you might have some questions for me. So what do you got for me?
I do. I really loved the whole conversation that we had around facilitators and blocks to connection. And given that we have different perspectives naturally on the matter, I would be very curious to learn what were your top 2 takeouts. Like, what did you like the most? What did you find the most interesting in our conversations with the participants that maybe could apply to different areas of life, not just relationships?
Sure. So the first one I would say, as you mentioned, is this idea of love and respect. And the second is around age and how the lens of age factored into some of our conversations. So on the love and respect side, to your point, I do believe very strongly that both sets of folks that were there, folks that identified as male, folks that identified as female, both want love and respect. It's just the order that they happen to come in terms of priority. The folks that happen to identify as male would say, or did say, that for me, respect comes first. It comes first. And if you do something to me that's negative, I see it as disrespect first. And if you do something with me or for me that is positive, I see it as respect first, right? And the reverse happened to be true. And I believe this was at 100% level for the folks that identified as women in the room. If you do that, I want to be loved. And if you do something that I perceive as negative, you don't love me. But if you do something that is positive, my goodness, look at how he loves me, right? And so the integration of that idea into whatever relationships that they have whether it happens to be mom and son, or whether it happens to be partner and partner, husband and wife. I think that, to your point, aha moment was very valuable and has a lot of traction that is immediately usable. And hopefully, even as people are listening now, they can take that and immediately use it. Now, we have to be careful about trying to take a little bit of knowledge and do a whole lot, right? So you got to pace that out. But keep in mind that is consistently true over time. The second piece was around age. There was a few times when we had conversations and I would ask the folks to consider that, well, your age bracket is different than this person's age bracket. So might that have something to do with how you're understanding the challenge or the problem? And for those of us that where they have age gap dating, I believe might be the current term. If you're into that, good for you. But understand that lens of age, it matters. The same way that gender matters, age matters, geography matters, it matters. So when we're thinking about and reading things or hearing things or podcasting things around relationships and connection, we need to realize that there are many things that matter. One of those is the love and respect differential between those that identify as men versus those that identify as women. And the other idea I'm inserting here, that when you place age in front of some of the challenges or positive things that happen, it changes what we see. It changes how we see it. And it changes how people see us. Right? It matters that I look like, feel like, taste like, identify as this aged person when I walk in the door versus a different aged person. It matters a great deal.
Absolutely. And I think that has a lot more to do with the development, the consciousness development, if you like, the experience that comes with age versus the actually numbers or the year of birth. It's I don't like to call it baggage because it has a negative connotation, but I think you're right? The sum of experiences that we've had up to a certain age will absolutely inform how we're going to approach a new relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah. I'm in 100% agreement. I think that's how things operate, right? We have to take all of it, whatever it might be, into consideration. To limit our perspectives, limits our opportunities. And so if we can engage multiple perspectives, then we have the opportunity to have meaningful, healthy relationships with people that are interesting and different from us.
Or extraordinary relationships, as I like to call them. But that's what makes relationships extraordinary. Clear boundaries, clear definitions of what qualifies as my ideal partner. And then the biggest question of all, if I desire an ideal partner, how do I become that ideal partner myself? You pointed out many times during our conversation that women desire emotionally available men. That was a funny section that we covered, and it's very popular these days for women to complain that nobody that I meet is emotionally available. But the definition of emotional availability was a really critical aha moment that we've had in the room, if you recall, because I think what women really define as emotional intelligence is, you need to be able, as a man, to hold space for me when I'm emotional, but I don't want you to be too emotional because that's not masculine.
Yeah, I think you have to remember that if you want an emotionally available person, you better be prepared for when they show up. Because emotionally healthy and available people will place boundaries upon themselves and the people around them. They will have discipline in terms of how they operate and expect that of the people around them. And so when she says or he says, hey, I need you to hold space for me, so, wait a second. I've been holding space for you for the last 6 or 7 months. And as I recall, you've yet to provide me the similar balance. So it's not that I'm not going to hold space for you, but moving forward, I'm going to expect it from you, or I'm going to go get it across the street from my guy friends, from my girlfriends, from my cat, from my dog, from a long walk by myself, because you're not providing that for me. And if you want an emotionally available person, you might want to be prepared for when they show up. And many of us, we say it's what we want because we heard it on television, we read an interesting book. But then when, Michael, the emotionally mature and available person, shows up, we say, oh my goodness, he's making all these crazy demands. Like, he's being toxic. No, 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 no. What he's being is emotionally available and mature and creating boundaries that are healthy for himself and the person that he wants to have next to him.
You mentioned a word that I think is thrown around a lot these days, toxic. There's a lot of conversation about toxic relationships, toxic masculinity. So in this context, or a broader context, if you like, obviously when we talk about romantic relationships and connection, what are some other topics that you wish were discussed more with participants to such events, or in social media or podcasts like this? What do you think is the opportunity for us when it comes to conversations between men and women, so that we find this balance that we seek and we find opportunities to connection, as opposed to getting stuck on the barriers to connection?
Sure. I think that there's a wonderful idea around equality that we should play out in its totality, and not look at as equality as I want more toys. To look at equality as whatever toys you have, and whatever I'd like to have access to those toys too, right? And then how might that work? So, and then what's negative about the toys you have? I have to look at that as once I get those toys, I too might have some negativity around that. The idea that toxic masculinity is a common phrase, but that toxic femininity is not, is imbalanced. It's inappropriately imbalanced. There's appropriate imbalance, there's inappropriate imbalance. So there is a such thing as toxic femininity. Of course there is. There must be, right? It's just like there's a such thing as healthy masculine boundaries and healthy feminine boundaries. And every woman has both, and every man has both. How you manage that is based upon, to your point earlier, the age and experience and mistakes you've made and lessons you've learned and all of that. But I think it is a more robust understanding of equality, right? That equality is not about, I want all the toys, I want the cushiest positions, I want the easier route. It's that whatever might happen to you could also happen to me. Whatever might be good and loving and wonderful for you might also be good and wonderful and loving for me, right? And I may not have the capacity to give it, but I see that because I can't give it, there's a deficit, right? That's part of it too. Right? So I think that when I look at what's next, I would appreciate it if people had a more robust discussion around what equality is, and that debate ought to be fully fertilized by all the minds around the table, and not just the ones that have the biggest microphone.
Absolutely. And I guess our goal is to get more people around this table. So to bring more people into this discussion, either as listeners or participants, because I fully agree with you. There's too much division. There's too much of an opposing perspective or a stance that I think people take. And for me, the only true way out of the difficult situation we are in with relationships is really to think of a relationship as an opportunity to what I call interbecoming, like growing together. If there's no growth, it's not going to work. For me, the desire to have a partner is 100% related to my desire to grow as a person and to, let's say, fix or evolve out of whatever toxic traits I might have, because I think everybody has them, as you rightly said, right? So there is a need for all of us to engage in these kind of conversations and in these kind of, let's say, challenging relationships, but not with the purpose of suffering or being traumatized by our partners, but to heal the parts of ourselves that need healing. And that, to me, is a really big topic, because I think it's also sometimes misunderstood. And just to raise the bar a little bit and continue with your contribution that offers the male perspective, so what men want, what men desire. Given that we had quite a few female participants in the masterclass, what advice would you give women who are looking to create deeper connections with men, to have deeper levels of intimacy, whether it is physical, emotional, intellectual, whatever? What could women do differently to achieve this kind of balance that you were talking about, a healthy level of giving and receiving, which is not always 50-50?
That I've thought about that since you gave me a heads up that this question might be on the table, and I've slid around in what my responses might be, but I think I've landed here that because it's about the equality statement I made before. What we expect from the goose, we ought to expect from the gander. And one of the things that in heterosexual relationships, men are often taught that you are to pursue. And if you are going to pursue something, you need to understand that which you are pursuing, right? And so you have to study what you're pursuing so that you can be more successful at it, right? So that's one thing that I would say. If you want, a particular kind of guy, an outcome of X, you might want to study what these creatures are. What are they like? What are they not like? And then decide if you're willing to put yourself in that position. Because you may not, and that's okay. Just know that then you've lowered your chances of being successful with this kind of creature that you would like to interact with some kind of. So I would say that as the first thing. And the second, again, because I think equality is necessary. When men fail, it is their male friends who are more often are going to tell them, men, get better. You're not good enough at that. Right. And so when with relationships, same thing, dude, you are way over your skis trying to talk to her. You don't make enough money. You don't have a decent job. You don't even know how to talk to women. Well, look at what you have on. You think that she's supposed to talk to you? You just showed up to the table like that. Put yourself together and then go and learn how to talk to people. Move through that socially awkward phase and get to a place where you're more comfortable and confident. Men will drive one another about that. And sometimes it's not nice the way that menfolk might talk to menfolk. And sometimes people go overboard. This is true. But equality, if you will, I think it would be a wonderful thing if our lady friends who are, in this case, interested in men, would provide advice and counsel and say, look, I'm not sure that's the right way to handle that. Instead of saying things like, toxic, he's a bad guy, this, that, and the other. How about we take a look at ourselves humbly and say, I probably should work on being, to use something that you mentioned earlier, becoming a great partner if I want a great partner, right? And that there is someone for everyone, but it seems in today's dating marketplace, all of the ones want a few of these ones. And it puts these few in a very powerful position. They have many, many choices, right? And so those few aren't for everybody. There's only 10 of them or 1,000 of them. But there's 100,000 people that want them. And so I think that if we can be more humble and look in the mirror and look around our friends and get good and solid advice, we'll be in a stronger position to pursue, activate, confirm, get that happy ever after that you talk about.
Well, my vision of happily ever after is you have to work for it every single day. It doesn't just happen like this. It's not magic. The magic is in putting in the work and the effort and the learning and the becoming a better person. So I agree with you. As you were talking about this, my mind went back to the setup that we met, the dance floor, and this whole dynamic that the dance environment actually mirrors our society on. We all know that the good dancers have a queue of women waiting for them. And the dancers that are not so great get a lot more rejected. So I think that's a picture of the world. If most men, all men, let's say, and women were working on getting better at this dance of relationship, that would make a big difference to the world.
Yes. Had a plug-in situation I had to deal with real quick.
That's all right, no problem.
But you're right that the your dance analogy is a good one, right? And if what I've told people when they say something like, "I would like to dance with this person or these kinds of people," but they never ask me, and then I'll say, "Well, get better. Get better." At times, that person that is saying that I haven't, I'm a beginner. I don't know all the things that they may want me or ask me to do. Get better, right? Well, they only choose the ladies that are dressed like that. Well, you have to decide if you want to dress like that. You don't have to. It's fine. But then there are consequences for that. Don't blame the guys who are choosing. You get to choose to put on the uniform that might attract the kind of bees that you want. It's you don't have to, but then you may have restricted some of your choices. Well, they only like the ladies that wear interesting heels or have their hair up. You have to decide if you want to put on heels or put your hair up. You don't have to, but you can't expect the men to change, and in reverse, right? Because I have told men, don't expect the women to change for you. Why should they change for you? They're not going to change for you. Maybe you should, get in the emotional gym and be stronger. Get in the mental gym and be stronger. Get in the financial gym and be stronger. Get in the social gym and be stronger. And then you'll be competitive for the kind of person that you want. Right? And you'll have a better chance. No guarantees, but you have a better chance. Right? Because right now, your chances, my friend, are 2%. Double it to 4. Double it to 8. See if you can get to 16. But and what works on the dance floor often works in our personal lives as well.
Exactly why I think dance is a perfect analogy for relationships. And also talking about the emotional gym and all of that, I'm kind of going back to the first question that you asked me. I often describe myself as a personal trainer for your heart, but not the physical heart, the emotional heart. A personal trainer in relationship skills, in listening skills, and all of that. So I may not be the greatest dancer, but I know how to lead this dance of relationships. I think what you've just said, in addition to the beautiful analogy and the connection to how to get better, this is why I think relationships are people growing machines. Because when we desire something different, better, a partner that can elevate us, then we find the motivation to do the work and to become our ideal partner.
Yes. That's as good a way to end it as any. And I appreciate it. I really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what to expect walking in the door. You and I had spent some time together kind of prepping and making sure we had the best sort of opportunity for learning and experience for them. But I thought it went really well. I was sufficiently, appropriately, and exhilaratingly exhausted at the end. It took
in a good way, I hope. In a good way.
I mean, it takes a lot out of me to give a lot out of me, right? The challenge with self-sacrificing activities and professions is that they often require self-sacrifice.
That's why we're in it. We like that. And also the feedback that we received, I just want to get our listeners to understand how not only we gave a lot, but our participants were fully present for 7.5 hours. We barely took any breaks and nobody was moaning, nobody was falling asleep, which is a testament to your contribution and to the energy that everybody created in the room. And that's the thing that is most exciting for me when I do these things and people resonate with each other and collaborate with each other. And there's all these Wow. Okay. I never thought of it that way. And you facilitated a lot of those moments. And the feedback that I've received from our participants was excellent. So they're asking for you to come back.
Oh my. Well, it's just halfway around the world, as I tell folks.
I know. It's not even far. You're not even from another planet.
It's only like, 2.75 fifths of the way around the planet.
I love your percentages as always. Thank you, James.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see y'all next time.